Hi everyone, it's Andrew Burke from Code School Halifax again, and just wanted to, before we dig in too deeply into things like CSS and JavaScript, I wanted to take a little bit of time to go over some other little fun things. Now that we've got a bit of code here that we can work with and look at, just wanted to show a few extra fun things you can do with that make Visual Studio Code a bit better, and as well as some fun things you can do with web browsers. So here we go. Now we've spent the last few lessons building up a web page with some content and some tags and some links and things. You can see here it is in all of its glory. And here's our code. And I wanted to take the opportunity before we dig in on things like CSS and JavaScript and start getting more complex. I wanted to share a few things that make things a little easier to work with Visual Studio Code now that we actually have some content to play with. And then later I'm going to maybe show you a little bit of some fun stuff you can do with browsers as well. So the big thing with HTML is it's all stuff inside other stuff. So we have, for example, global count here is inside these divs, which is inside body, which is inside HTML. Okay. Big thing with HTML is tags should be inside other tags completely. So if you have title start and that title finish, it should all be inside head. Same thing with any of these things as well. They shouldn't be wrapping sort of, inside and outside each other. They should all be completely inside other things. And when pages get fairly complex, this is still quite simple, but if you take a look around at other more complex pages, as you'll see this will get eventually, you can get lots and lots of layers of embed, and it's kind of difficult sometimes to see which things start and which things finish. Now, I've already showed you that if you click on a tag, it'll highlight the other end of that tag, right? So here's the body and here's the other body at the very top. That's great. But if you go and roll over into the margin, it pops up next to the numbers as little twisty things. And these let you close up any sort of containing tags, okay? They go all the way through the hierarchies. We can actually close up our whole page to just the HTML, which is kind of pointless, but you could do it. But it shows you how you can break things down into sections and subsections and subsections. And this is really handy if you're trying to isolate what you're looking at to sort of try to figure out where you're going, or to even just look at the bigger structure of the page. There should be a header, a middle, a footer kind of thing. And that's a really useful thing if you just want to get the hang of how things are organized. Because keeping track of how things are organized is one of the challenges when you're doing HTML. Other thing that's also useful is you'll see in here, you see the little line there. It actually automatically gives you the lines of the context that you're in. So if I'm here in this level, you can see there's a line all the way through body. That's the parent tag, and that's the level of indent it has. And you'll notice when I start a new line here, it automatically indents me to the right spot. Now you can hit tab and shift tab to move back and forth if you want to, but Visual Studio Code is going to try to at least start you off in the right place, which is really handy. Now you can move that around a bit, but it's really great to have it automatically indenting for you, because good discipline for how to indent properly when you're doing things is a really good habit to have, but it's sometimes difficult to pick up. And something like Visual Studio Code can really help you with that by indenting for you. Okay, now your version of Visual Studio might be indenting slightly different, maybe sometimes deeper levels. Down here, you can set the indent level. I like 2 spaces per level. Other people like using tabs or more spaces or fewer. Anyway, 2 for me works. Some people like using tabs. I don't. There's a whole holy war going on between the people who use spaces and tabs. I prefer to use the tab key, which then adds spaces. Anyway, you can see these here, detect indentation from content, stuff like that. So play down here if you want to fiddle with your spacing and indents, but generally the defaults are pretty good. And it will, like I said, automatically set up the proper indents for you as you start typing. So that's really handy. And then another quick thing, while we're all talking about where code lives and how indents work and everything, is if you've got your indents aren't working and you've been maybe copying and pasting some stuff from one place to another and the indents are all wrong, there's a option. If you right click anywhere on the page, you'll get an option, at least with HTML and with some other languages inside Visual Studio Code, called Format Document. And it will automatically re-indent everything properly. So if you start really making a mess, or if you're still not sure what you're doing, go in there and Format Document. It'll actually format things properly for you and redo all the indents and everything to be proper. Now, I've already kind of messed up this file a bit, and I don't remember how to get it back to where it was, but this is where version control comes in handy. Just go here and discard the changes, and we are back where we were at the beginning. So this is why version control is so useful, because you can just roll it right back to where you need to be. Okay. So there we go. So that's the basics of how indenting and auto indenting and all that kind of thing. And I do want to take a quick tour of something else that's inside browsers. So I'm going to go to my Code School Halifax webpage. Okay, so there it is. We're doing some stuff. I've included these videos already. I updated the webpage today to include our little video series here. And you can see our stuff here. It's a pretty standard webpage. There's a bunch of things on it, different sections, some pictures and whatever. One of the great things with web pages, and one of the things that's been true about them ever since web browsers with graphics and stuff came out in the early 90s, is you're always able to see the code. None of it's really locked down. You can always see how things are organized. And you may need to go and set some things up in your preferences, make sure you selected to show developer tools. I think Chrome has this by default. You might have to pick up from a window. Safari, you just go into preferences and turn them on, and you get this whole develop menu, which is kind of nifty. Most of it I don't tend to use that much, but you can then, anything on this web page, or any web page ever, you can right click and there's an option to inspect. And that brings up this whole toolbox, this whole candy box of development tools. We'll be covering some of these later as well, things like the console and things. But you'll see here what they've done is they've actually given you a full version of the web page and all the HTML code involved in that. And as you roll over things, you'll see it actually highlights them on the page. So this is a great way to learn how things have put together on a modern web page, is you just simply go through and look at the code and roll around and see how things are fitting together. Now, this will make a lot more sense once we get into CSS and layout and all that, but it's a really handy way to see what's going on. This is just a great way to see what's happening. You can click and expand and collapse, just like we were sort of doing in Visual Studio. Same kind of idea. But one thing that's kind of fun while you're here is all of this is just in your browser's memory. So if you just double click on any content, and if you get stuck and you can't find out where it is, try Control F or Command F and type in the word you're looking for. So code, okay, and it'll jump you down to that part of the page. Anyway, any text that's in here that's inside tags, you can double click on it and change it. Okay, and you hit enter, and now that's changed the content on the page. Now that's only the content for you on the page. It doesn't go update the server. And then when you reload the page, it goes back to where it was. But it's kind of fun. If you've ever seen people showing tweets that look like they're screenshots of tweets that look like they're from somebody, but it turns out they were fake, they've often used this. They just go into the Twitter web interface and double click on the text and change it in the console. And then you've got people saying fake things. So that's a fun thing to do. Anyway, it's a fun way to explore and try this on your favorite web pages. Now, some these days especially are quite complex and have lots and lots of layers of all sorts of different stuff. But even then, just using that little search thing, Control F or Command F, to find things can really help you see how where text lives and how many layers of other things are inside them. So that's a little quick tour of some interesting fun things you can do. And next up is CSS. Okay, hang on.